right, keep making your way in. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've got a lot packed in this presentation, and so I'm just going to jump right in. My name is Michal Cheney. I'm the owner of No Drip Painting out of Columbus, Ohio. I know I've seen some Buckeyes around here somewhere. Yes, that's right. That's right. See, here they are. I have a residential painting company, okay? Now, if you're in the commercial world, don't get up and leave. I promise there's some good nuggets in this presentation for you as well. But I'd like to set the stage and kind of give you a few pieces of background about my business because it'll help tie in the conversation for you. So residential, we're a $4 million company. We do a small little commercial repaint stuff, and I have a split model with employees and subcontractors. Now what I've learned, and the model I'm kind of shifting to, is I really want to grow this thing with employees. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are kind of setting the stage for me to make that switch. And you know, there's always the long-term, ongoing debate. Is it subs? Is it W-2s? I think you can do it with anything, but I kind of have a system to what I'm doing. So the things I'll tell you about my presentation is I love acronyms. So you're going to get a few acronyms in here. And by the way, if you ever need to create a good acronym, ChatGPT is like the best for that. ChatGPT is the best for lots of things. So you're going to find some acronyms. And you're going to find structure, okay? And you're going to find accountability. Now, I also want to say that we're a $4 million company now, but what our North Star is in my company is we're going to be the best painting company in Ohio, okay? And that's what we say, and that's our mission. And what my real goal is as a business owner that I've discovered is that really I'm leading my way out of the business. So there's one key position I have that I brought in the business last year, and it's a production manager. So I want to kind of give that background. The reason I have a production manager is because someday I want someone else to get this business to where I believe it can go. I think, I don't want to always be the bottleneck in my business, and I don't think I'm the bottleneck now, but my real goal is to lead my way out of the business and have the best painting company in Ohio. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start with this piece, this framework that we developed, and it's for customer issues, okay? Now, this is a production talk, but y'all know customer issues happen. And what I discovered about customer issues is that, let me say I have a young team, right? Young project managers, young sales reps, and they have always perceived customer issues as being very difficult. And I know I've had the tendency to do that too, right? I don't have to really deal with customer issues in the business now, but there's kind of this fear around it. And I really saw that with my young folks. So I created this framework, and it's called BLAST, okay? It's an acronym, all right? But I'm going to kind of teach you a little piece of it, and I'm going to teach it kind of how we teach our team. And so here's the idea. With anything, we talk a lot about energy, right? Our energy is super important, and I will say that it's really important when you're dealing with customer issues, okay? So when we train this to our young team, we remind them, look, customers often mirror your energy, okay? So we want to show up with this positive energy. And this last key point up here, remind yourself, I'm here to help, not defend. We talk about that a lot, right? I know, especially like when I was a painter, and by the way, when I started my business, it was me and a paintbrush. I would kind of get offended if customers didn't like my work or they had a problem, right? And I used to really take it to heart. And I don't think that was really unique because I was the owner, but I find my team kind of doing this too, right? So we really show up with this attitude, I am here to help, not to defend, and we just train. Smile and dial. If you're calling, you're smiling and you're dialing. So we talk about energy, and then the second piece of this is the BLAST format. And here's what it is. The first thing the customer tells you, you're going to believe them, right? So we're not here to defend, we're here to help. So whatever they say, I'm going to believe them. And we know sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow to believe what your customer is saying, but we believe them. The second piece of this puzzle is we listen. Okay? And by the way, back up to the believe, we coach towards phrases like this. So when you believe someone, the response is, I can understand why that would be frustrating, right? We're believing them. The second piece of that puzzle is listen, right? So the customer tells you something, and you listen so that you could maybe respond with something like, so the main concern here is that there are drips near your entryway, right? So we listen, Then we move on to the A in BLAST, which is apologize, right? We're going to take some accountability, and I'll tell you what, that theme of accountability runs through my entire business. It's one of our core values. So, we can apologize, we can take accountability, and we can say something like, I'm really sorry this slipped through the cracks. We take pride in leaving your home spotless, right? So now we've got our apology in there. From there, we're problem solvers. What we talk about our PMs and even our crew leaders, I mean, gosh, even as a business owner, what is the real job? We are literally solving problems all the time, right? So we kind of set up that expectation for our team. Hey, we're going to get really good at problem solving. So in this case, we're going to solve. You know what? I'll have crew members there in the morning to fix that for you. Does that work for you? Right? Last but not least, we're going to thank them. And this is the way we tie this whole framework together. We're going to say something like, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and giving us the chance to make it right. We really thank people for their feedback, and we really use it as just an opportunity to improve what we're doing. Again, sometimes it might hit you in the heart, especially if you're really close to what you're doing. But this framework has been essential. And what we do, it helps my young people kind of feel more comfortable with these conversations. And so if you don't have something like this set up, I would encourage you to do that. I decided to put this at the beginning because this presentation probably could be an hour and a half long. And at the end, I feel like I'm always rushing to hit the time mark. So I wanted to give you this framework up front. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you teach this to your teams, they're going to be total rock stars when they need to deal with a customer issue. I'll also tell you that that BLAST framework works really well in your personal life too. Just another little tidbit. You're welcome for that one. I'm always interested to see what programs people are using. Now let's just say there's many out there. The ones I use aren't right. They're not wrong, right? But I'm always interested to see kind of what some of those main programs people are using. And as I go through the presentation, I'm going to be hitting on some of these just because it's what we use. So I wanted to kind of give you a background of what that is. And then the roles that I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to really spend time on the painter role. I'm going to start the crew leader, which the crew leader role is, they're a painter, they're a high-skilled painter. It's a leadership position within the job or on the project. And then we've got a coordinator, a project manager, and then my production manager. And as we kind of go along, I will stop periodically to take questions. Or if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. If I can get it to you, I will, okay? All right, let's talk about the crew leader role. So as I've grown in business and have done all the things wrong, I've realized how essential this actual position is. So this is an employee position. Now you could also say that if you have subcontractors, they likely have a crew leader or an owner, right? But the crew leader is really the one that's running the project. And we're actually doing this now. We're investing a lot more time and training into this position because what I've realized, if you have an employee model, the stronger your crew leader is, the less project managers you need, right? So the less PMs you need. So this crew leader has been essential to us, and it is a leadership position, okay? So, oftentimes we take our best painter, we promote them, and then we find out that they don't do great in the next role. I've done all of that. So I know now that crew leaders have to have some sort of lean towards leadership in some capacity. But their job is to run the project from start to finish. They follow a startup checklist, which I'll go over with you. They create project plans. They follow our SOPs, and they follow our closeout checklist. So one of the things that you guys are going to see, and one of the things I worked really hard at, is creating this structure. Now, if you don't have any structure in your business, don't let this overwhelm you, because I remember many times I'd sit in rooms like this, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at all this structure, look at all these SOPs. At one point, didn't know what an SOP even meant. So don't get overwhelmed, because there's going to be bits and pieces of this that you can take. And if you're someone that has a lot of structure, you'll probably appreciate this, and maybe you'll find some things that I'm doing that you're not. But the idea here is that we have a well built out position. We know exactly what the crew leader does, and everybody else knows what the crew leader does as well, right? In the spirit of structure, every position that we have has KPIs, right? So key performance indicators. And what this is this is how my team knows how to win. They know what a win looks like. So the KPIs that we hold my crew leaders to, there's three things that we kind of feel like they can control. And one is their attendance, right? So we have attendance policy. They clock in and out with busy, and they have to be on time, and they have to show up to work. So they are 100% in charge of their attendance, and that's one reason why it's one of their metrics they're reviewed on. The other piece of the puzzle is that they need to bring projects in on budget, right? We do have a save labor bonus program, so if the project is a 40-hour job and they can get that done in 35 hours, they're going to get a bonus on that project, and they can control that, right? We trust our production rates, we trust in our numbers, and so we know how long every job is going to take, or how long really every task is going to take. But their job is to hit budget 75% of the time. And then the last piece is less than 2% callbacks. By the way, everybody gets feedback on their performance weekly. There's dashboards, so our crew leaders and even our painters, we actually use, I talked about Save Labor, we use ProTip for that, and they can log in on a daily basis and see where their last project ended, so they always know whether they're hitting the metrics or not, okay? So this is our crew leader checklist. So the idea is that when we show up to start a project, we want it to feel the same for every customer. You know, one of the things that we really lean into and focus on is our customer experience. And one reason we do that is because we think it's a differentiator, right? We know not all painting companies focus on experience or customer experience, and we do that, but also we're trying to get a 5-star review at the end of this thing, right? We're really big on 5-star reviews, and so these checklists that we have help us accomplish those goals, and I won't go through it word for word, but one of the things that they have to do in the startup checklist is they have to pre-position the customer to give us a review. So as they're going through this checklist and they're kind of verifying, okay, this color goes over here, you know, this color goes over here, as they're having that interaction with the customer, they're also setting the customer up, and they're gonna say something like, hey, once we complete your project and you love it, would you be willing to give us a 5-star review? And at that time, customers are excited to get this thing going, right? It's the first day. They've already had a great experience with our sales team. They've probably had a color consultation. I'll tell you guys what we do with color consultations here in a minute, but the customer's excited, and of course they're gonna say, yes, you know, when I love this project, I'll be happy to give you a 5-star review. But we're kind of pre-positioning them, so at the end of the project, we can come back, and when they say, oh my gosh, I love everything, then we're gonna say, hey, would you still be willing to give us that 5-star review? I will dig more into those 5-star reviews in a minute because we do have a KPI around that. But this is how we do this. We have this structured. We assign the projects in Slack. We use Slack for our communication. So in Slack, there's things called channels, and each channel is a project. So if it's the Smith project, we've got the Smith PO, and then that crew leader and the team that is working that project gets invited there. We put the work order in there. We put it, you know, schedule them in busy. That's how they know where their project is. They are responsible for picking up materials from the shop. The materials are all ready for the project. They just have to pick them up. They then do the start out and checkout closeout list that I'm talking about. They do a project planning sheet, which I will also say I've learned how important this piece of the puzzle is. By the way, we work in teams of 2 for our employee painters, and I find that's a nice way to keep control of quality. And if it's a really big job, we might put 2 teams of 2 or 3 teams of 2. We've kind of come up with this really cool way to take a big project and break it down into smaller projects, and we found that we're more efficient. Our punch out is less because when a team has the opportunity to focus on a smaller piece of this puzzle instead of the entire thing, they perform better. So we do work in teams of 2. So our crew leader is responsible for creating that project planning sheet, and that's kind of the guide or the blueprint for how we're going to attack the project. And then we have our daily brush updates. And again, I told you guys from the beginning, there's acronyms in here, and they work really well for us. But this brush update has been an essential piece of our communication. And then we do have project managers. We have PMs that the crew leaders can partner with if they need. But this is kind of a quick look at what that organization looks like. And here's an example of what our Slack channel would look like. We've got the PO in there. We've got a link to the work order. We've got a link for the invoice. One other thing that's an important piece of the puzzle, I don't know if anyone's ever had problems like collecting payments. Our goal is when the project is done, we collect the payment. We do take a 35% deposit. We actually won't start a job without a 35% deposit. And then for residential repaints, the day the project's completed, we expect the customer to pay. They know ahead of time that that's what the plan is. And on that startup checklist, in addition to pre-positioning them for the review, we are also reminding them when the project's done, that's when we'll take payment, okay? So we don't want those kind of things slipping through the cracks, because I remember years ago, I don't know why, but I just couldn't figure out how to collect a payment. And then I couldn't figure out how to track payments that I hadn't collected. It was a mess, but now we've got this strong system in place so we don't miss any sort of payments. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what BRUSH stands for?
Yes, I'm going to get there because if you rely on all of it to come out of my mind, it's not going to happen. So here's the deal with BRUSH. Yeah, thanks for teeing me up there. So one of our core values is strong communication, right, and customer experience. And so the idea is that we can't just say that we're really good at communication or we want to be good at communication. We have to have these standards in place. So one of the updates that we do, and our crew leaders must do that, and I will tell you that we also require our subcontractors to do that. And I'm going to tell you, I made a kind of mindset shift here, thanks to Brandon Lewis, on how I operate with subcontractors, but here's BRUSH. They have to turn this in by 3 p.m. every day, and they put it right in Slack, okay? And this is the format we follow. So here are the things that we want to know. Now, you guys could tailor this to whatever's important in your business, but budget. Are you on budget, right? That's the name of the game. If we can't make money here, then why are we even doing this? And so I need the crew leaders to know at every moment, are they on budget? So that's what the B's for. Resources. Do you need anything? Doesn't it seem so difficult sometimes just to find out if they need another can of paint? Well, we used to struggle with that kind of stuff, right? And here we'd be out at the store at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, this is their opportunity. Do you need anything from tomorrow? They have to have it in by 3 p.m., which gives us time to react to the request, okay? Updates. Any important updates or conversations with the customer. So, conversations with the customer, it's really important. We've had teams, years ago that would, say, make some sort of arrangement with the customer on what time they were coming the next day, and we would never know, right? So here's their opportunity. Has there been anything that we need to know? Go ahead and let us know this. Site condition, has anything been broken, damaged, or disturbed in the home? If that happens, we all know it does from time to time, something might not go as planned. We want to know that ahead of time so that we can get in front of it. And we have, this open conversation about this. Nobody's going to get in trouble for damaging something, right? It happens. I've damaged things. We want to create this fluidity between conversations with our painters and our team, because we want to get ahead of it in front of it with the customer, and this is our opportunity. Last but not least, help needed, any issues, call out, or support from the office. That is our BRUSH update. It has changed the way that we communicate in the field. And here's kind of the example of it. By the way, we post pictures in Slack as well. That works really well for our social media stuff, because then we get pictures. But that's a real live BRUSH update that Anthony did. We also have this BRUSH update in Spanish. I don't have the version of it in here for you, but we have it in Spanish, and we require all of our subcontractors to do it. That owner of that subcontractor team must do our BRUSH update. It's how we work within the business, okay? This is a quick look at what one of our SOPs looks like. We also have all of our SOPs in Spanish, and we have these laminated and on a ring. It's one of the few things in the business that we still have paper for, but we have all of these out on our job sites, and we require our teams to follow this. Now, we don't require subcontractors. That's a little different, but our employee painters have to follow our standard processes on how we paint any space, okay? All right, moving on to the coordinator role. Now, this was a role that we implemented a couple years ago, and it literally changed everything. Before we had this coordinator role, we had our PMs collecting colors and doing scheduling and things like that. And while it worked at that time, it became the bottleneck in the business once we started to grow. So this role has been very important, and I will tell you that the outcome of it is that we've really improved our customer experience because of it. But here's what our coordinator does. They schedule the start date with the customer. That's the first thing. And we, a few years ago, made a change. For a long time, we operated in this system where I just couldn't figure out what date the project was going to start, right? I'm like, well, do I give them this date? And if I give them this date, can we be there? Or is a job going to run over? Am I going to have to move things around and call the customer back? Like, I couldn't figure out how to give a date, so we would give a window, right? Your project's going to start the week of. Well, I'm happy to say that we actually figured out how to give them a start date, an exact start date. And we choose the date and we say, can you start this day? And, yes, they can, or maybe they're on vacation, we have to move it around. But we give them a start date, and we hit that start date about 98% of the time. Unless it rains or something's out of our control, we give them a solid start date, and then we show up to paint on that day. But our coordinator does that. They collect all the colors. They verify the work order with the customer, right? So the customer has met with our sales folks. Our sales folks sold the job. But our coordinator reviews that work order just to make sure we're not missing anything. It's also an opportunity to maybe upsell. And then the coordinator orders the materials. They also schedule color consultations.
How do they verify that work order? Do they meet the customer at their house?
This is all done over the phone. Yep. So customer has a copy of their estimate, and we're just reviewing the work order. And I'll say it's just one of those things that we put into place just to catch anything. You know how it is. Sometimes they talk with your sales rep. Maybe they talked about adding on a ceiling, but it actually didn't get on there. So we verify it just all through the phone, and then they schedule color consultations. Here's what we do with color consultations. A few years ago, I got this metric or this stat from Sherwin-Williams. And Sherwin-Williams said 50% of people don't move forward with a painting project because they can't figure out the color, right? And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, this is something that I can figure out for them, right? I don't want half of my customers potentially not moving forward because they can't figure out a color. So we do a color consultation on every single project. It doesn't matter the size of it. This is just one of the value props that we offer. So, we will, when a sales rep sells the project, in that moment, they will ask if the customer would like to get on our schedule for a color consultation, and then they can schedule them. We have a link for it. Or when it gets to the coordinator, the customer might say, you know what, I think I do want to take advantage of that color consultation, and then our coordinator will schedule it. And I will tell you that I found a unique piece in here with the color consultation. This past year, I hired a designer who has a design background, and she's now one of my sales reps. She'll actually be here. She's on the estimating panel. But because she has this background in design, she's able to use these color consultations as an upsell tool. So I'll give you an example. She goes into someone's home and prices out 3 rooms. And during this conversation, because she's so good with color and ideas, she might say, well, hey, you're painting all of this. What about this office over here? I'm envisioning this, this, and that. And she's literally upselling to the tune of thousands of dollars onto these projects. So it's a really cool caveat to think about. There's 2 things here, actually. If you're in residential, you should have a female sales rep on your team because homeowners really relate well with female sales reps. Whether it's true or not, they think we're more detailed. They think that we pay, more attention to things, and there's a trust piece that's already built in there. So I would encourage you to think about that. And then as far as the design background goes, it's kind of opened up a door to a whole new thing for us. So I'll kind of leave you with that. Yes?
Painting as far as that, how do you have that structured?
For the color consultations? So I have my one in-house designer who we use strategically. But I have 2 other designers in town that we 1099. And I think what we pay right now, I think we pay $125 for an interior 1-hour visit. And then I think we pay, I want to say $175 or maybe $200 for an exterior, but we also do a rendering with the exterior. Like salary? So my sales reps, they get paid $45,000 a year plus 4.5% of everything they sell that hits gross profit. So they usually are hitting around they're making $100,000 or more. So this coordinator also schedules our painters, okay? And I always thought that was impossible. How can one person that is not directly involved in the project, how can they understand the skill set of all of our painters and all of our subcontractors? Well, we have a spreadsheet for it, we have an SOP for it, and it works really well. They have KPIs, right? Everybody in the business needs to understand what a win looks like, and they're reviewed on how much they're scheduling. They have a metric that they need to meet, and then we also track their order accuracy for materials, okay? And here's how this process gets kicked off. So I always want to know how people move things from one area of the business to the other area. And so in our CRM, which is Go High Level, when we sell a job, it basically populates on our production dashboard, and our coordinator knows it's ready to start the process. And the process looks like they open up the project, they read the notes. We have estimator notes that I'm going to show you guys in a moment. There's an acronym for it. But there's estimator notes, they review that, and then they can call the customer and they can start scheduling and they can do their process. But it's all kicked off with this pipeline that we've got built into our CRM, okay? So there's some automation also that I'm really big on, right? So there's an automation piece here. We use Zapier and things like that to kind of tie our programs together. This is just a quick look of the coordinator dashboard. Now, I will tell you that as we grow, we're changing this. We're going back to using Monday, some things that have a little more built-in automation. But this is how they keep track of things. They can see their goal each week. They know what they're shooting for the month. But that's just kind of a quick look at that. All right, so one of the things for a long time that we struggled with, it was the handoff from sales to production, right? Your sales reps are having conversations with customers, and maybe sometimes they're making promises to customers. And the challenge was always getting that information into the hands of production, the people that actually need to know that information. And so now let me say this about the acronyms. At first glance, it's going to look like we have a lot of acronyms, but keep in mind they kind of operate in silos. So like this DRIPS acronym, the reason we have this, it's really for our estimators, our sales reps, and we want them to get a certain amount of information, and we want it packaged nice and neatly so that when our coordinator gets into that account, they already know some things, and we don't have to re-ask the customer for some things. So like what we have here is one of the first things they have to know is, when does the customer want this done, right? We don't want to call the customer and say, hey, we're ready to start next week, and the customer says, well, I told Josh that I was on vacation, right? We want all of that transparently communicated. So we talk about the date preference. Relationship detail. You know, I've talked about customer experience, and one way we want to kind of surprise our customers, the Walt Disney guy talked about that today, and man, is he not a perfect fit for Walt Disney with all of his animation. You're not going to get any of that from me. I can't do it. But no, so we want to be able to have a little surprise for the customer. And the way we do that is we have our sales reps collect some details. So for example, our customer's about to have a baby. Did they just get a puppy? Are they Buckeye fans? Of course they are, right? So we collect this information and we store this away so that at the end of the job, we can give them a little gift. Now, we do different gifts based on size of the project, but one of our favorite gifts, we call it a cookie can, and we get 1 gallon empty cans from our vendor, and then we put our label on it. And then we call it a cookie can because we used to start just by putting gourmet cookies in there, but now we'll do anything. If they have a new puppy, we're gonna put puppy toys in there, right? With our thank you card. If they have a certain certain wine or bourbon that they love, we're going to put it in our cookie can, right? And we're going to give that to them. But we find out what to give them based on this conversation that our sales reps are having. Important project notes, right? Like, okay, customer is really concerned about nail pops. We want to know that ahead of time so we can address all of those things. We don't want the customer coming back after the project saying, hey, I told so-and-so I wanted all these nail pops fixed. We want to make sure that our production team gets that. Production expectations. We've talked a lot about this in the business. Man, we need to figure out how to translate what the customer is expecting to production. And I will tell you, we're coming up with a rating system right now that I'm not really ready to talk about, but we're honing in on this on a different level because our real goal is to understand the expectations of the customer so that our production team can go nail it. And last but not least, site specifics. Are there parking restrictions? Are there things going on with pets, alarm codes, all those things? So this right here is a huge piece of the puzzle, and this is how we bridge the gap between sales and production. All right, project managers. Let's talk about project managers. Now, I want to say this, that again, as I grow and we have more crew leaders, we probably will not need project managers. I'll also say in the commercial world, project managers operate completely differently. In my world in residential, the truth is the reason I need project managers is because I have sub-teams that don't speak English. And this is, if my world was a little bit different, I might not need to have project managers like this, but my project managers are bilingual. They help bridge the gap for the communication piece between the subcontractor and the customer, right? We want the customer to have a good experience, and our project manager is the one that can start that project, make sure our sub-teams understand what we're doing. But they onboard sub-teams. We have a whole onboarding process. We're pretty strict on who we hire. They have to be professional. They have to align with our values. And, we do a whole onboarding to ensure that we've got the right people. They manage our sub-teams. Our project managers give a DART update at the end of each day to let us know how their projects are going. And then they have to hit our KPIs. The real thing that, project managers, the way I see it, is they link three things. They link our customers with our painters, with our materials, right? That's really at the core of what they're doing. And to no surprise, they have KPIs. So our goal, they have to hit 52% gross profit, 50% 5-star reviews. Now, when I say this, people think that this is a lot. And I, at one point, thought it was a lot until I realized we're absolutely capable of doing it. What this KPI means is that 50% of their projects have to get a 5-star review, right? We're trying to have a good customer experience. The best way to rate that is with a review from our customer. So, and I will tell you, they're meeting it. And here we do some things to assist them on this. So 50% of their projects have to get a 5-star review. We will do things like a call blitz once a week. On Fridays, for about an hour and a half, we bring the whole team in. This is sales reps. This is PMs, obviously not crew leaders or painters. They need to be out there painting. We bring everyone in and we do a call blitz. Our sales folks are focused on following up on customers they've given bids to, right? Or maybe they're doing some business development phone calls. Our PMs are focused on getting 5-star reviews. And the way we work is with a lot of accountability. So, for a long time with PMs, I tried to figure out, are they salary plus bonus? I'm back and forth on all this stuff, and I have a great coach who is standing in the back of the room, so I like to shout out Tara Riley whenever I can because she's one of the best in the business. But we've had lots of conversations around this pay structure, and so what I landed on was I just came back to them and I said, you know what, everybody's getting an increase, and your job is to keep your job, and you get to do that by hitting these KPIs. And you know what? It's working out better than me to try and find some elaborate bonus plan for my PMs. Now, I'm not saying that won't change. Here's the keys to it. The first starts with KPIs. And I remember for years, I couldn't figure out what the KPIs should be. It feels really silly saying that now. But, I always heard people talking about KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And it's actually not as difficult as I made it out to be at one point. And I would say that if you don't have any KPIs or structure in the business, just pick one, right? You at least have to have an idea of how much money you want to make. I would say starting with like gross profit is a good place to start. So I'll just say that about the KPIs. The structured communication, which you guys have now seen, and you now know that I love acronyms, but they've worked really well. But again, if we say we're a company that cares about communication, we need processes and systems to support that. We've got our self-reporting system. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the quote. It's, what is it? Well, of course, I'm drawing a blank. It's something like, we trust in God we trust, but everyone else bring data. Well, this is their data. And they self-report, and we trust but verify. But by having this self-reporting system, it keeps people locked into where they're at all the time. And I will tell you one other thing that we do is we have our PMs do their own job costing. I've taken that role, that job costing role, and I've given it to other people in the business, like an admin and things like that. But I quickly realized for me in our setup, the best person to do it is the PM, because they know exactly how their job ended, and I needed them to have that information really quickly. So self-reporting. Accountability, which I will talk about here in just one little minute about what we do to hold people accountable. And then I'll say always reward good behavior, right? Praise people for when they do good. We do that through our Slack channel for our painters. We have an announcements category, and we can tag people. We can take pictures of people. We will recognize people there. For the business, for my office folks, we have a text chain, and we will, if someone gets a 5-star review, we all celebrate it. Sometimes we're celebrating 5 times a day because we're getting 50% of reviews out there, but it's that recognition, right? And then the last thing I'll kind of talk about, and then I'll open up for questions, is this accountability piece. One of the things that I've gotten better at over the years is holding people accountable. And the way we do that is that we call it a PIP. It's a performance improvement plan. So if you're not meeting our metrics, if you're not meeting your KPIs, you will go on a 30-day performance plan. And you can work yourself out of the business, right? We're results driven. I need a team that is focused on results. So we, of course, have a whole plan. We have an SOP for our PIP, but that is how we hold people accountable. And you know what? We don't hide that, right? When we talk about KPIs, everyone knows that if we're not hitting our KPIs, there's the opportunity to go on a performance plan. And that's just how we operate, right? It's not something to be fearful of. It's actually something that can help you. If you need a little more attention, we can help you. And I'll give you the example. If someone's not hitting their 50% review mark, they're going to go on a performance plan on that for that. But we're going to have help. We're going to have support. My production manager, maybe that's when they're sitting in those one-on-ones and they're helping them making calls. Or maybe, I've had young PMs come in and they feel weird about asking customers for reviews. Well, we teach that. We role play that. We do a lot of role playing in the business. It's one of those things that I've always hated because I'm actually an introvert and, don't make me role play in front of a group. But we actually do that, and I can't even tell you, we role play that blast framework that I showed you guys. We role play our startup checklist, and now it's part of our culture. And people aren't fearful of it anymore. We just get up and we role play. Every meeting we start out like that. But that's a little bit on accountability. Feel free to reach out anytime, guys. I'm happy to help. Thanks for listening.